These are the untold stories and rare photos of American actress Diana Rigg. In teenage, she gave in to the fast celebrity life, but at old age, the consequences would haunt her. And at 82, she wishes that she had chosen a more solitary career path. So why did Rigg leave the Avengers at the peak of her success? On her deathbed, why did she keep advocating for assisted death? Let's find out. As a child, Diana Rigg never wanted to become an actress, and in her last years, seeing all the trouble that path brought her, she wished she had stuck to her original plan. According to Rigg, although her parents wanted it for her, it took dying in a school play to convince her to take a chance at acting. Rigg was born in Doncaster, South Yorkshire. Her father was an engineer while her mother was a homemaker. Diana has a brother who is 4 years her senior. Due to the nature of her father's occupation, the family moved frequently. At the time of Rigg's birth, her mother was in England, but after 3 months, she was moved to Rajasthan in India, where she learned how to speak fluent Hindi. After she turned 8, the years that followed were going to prove to be the worst of her childhood. But that was exactly what her parents wanted for her. Diana was forced to go to boarding school, and there, according to her, she felt like a fish out of water. Even though she hated those years, they still helped prepare her for what was coming. After high school, Rigg was enrolled in the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. This was between 1955 and 1957. There, she was almost expelled from school because of how rebellious she was. Rigg was generally not considered Royal Academy material because of how she spent most of her time partying, meeting boys, and coming to class hungover. But they reluctantly let her continue, and she turned out to be one of the biggest stars to pass through the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. Other names you might recognize are Glenda Jackson and Sian Phillips, who were both Rigg's classmates. About the play that would change her life forever, Rigg said, "It was an extremely dramatic play called Wild December. It was all about the Bontes, and they all, one after the other, died of tuberculosis. I remember taking every opportunity to cough over other people's lines. And once she had that taste, there was no going back. She was even going to break all the rules by becoming one of the first women to appear nude for a theatrical performance." The actress made her theater debut 2 years after her graduation from drama school, and her breakthrough came with her first performance on Broadway. In 1971, Diana was featured in the Roland Miller play Abelard and Eloise, where she appeared nude with Keith Mitchell. For her performance, Rigg earned the first 3 Tony nominations for the Best Actress in a Play. She was going to continue her success streak with the 1975 play The Misanthrope, for which she received her second nomination. Although she found better success on television, Diana Rigg insists that her time on stage was better. She would often talk about the importance of live theater and the unique connection between actors and the audience. One notable quote from her is, "Theater is ephemeral, but it is also, in its own way, immortal." Her last dance on the stage was in February 2018, when she returned to Broadway in the non-singing role of Mrs. Higgins in My Fair Lady. She received her 4th Tony nomination for this role. Theater was easy. Diana's television and film career was going to serve her way more than she could chew. From her struggles of being an industry sex symbol to her cry for justice when directors exploited her, Rigg made her television debut in the British television series The Avengers, where she played secret agent Emma Peel. Although this was her breakthrough role, Rigg cried to leave after her first few episodes in the series. While there were a few other challenges, what completely shocked her was what came with becoming a sex symbol in the series. According to Rigg, she received so many inappropriate fan mails, and she couldn't even discard them because she felt guilty about it. So she will stack them up in the boot of her car. At some point, her mother took the job of her secretary and would spend time reading and sorting the mail. Diana recalled that whenever she came across a very dirty message from a fan, she would say, "My daughter is far too old for you. Go take a cold shower." She hated that her new status messed with her privacy. As tragic as this might seem, this was not the reason why she left the Avengers. Another one of Diana Rigg's struggles on the set of Avengers was that she was severely underpaid. According to her, she got even more frustrated when she learned that the cameraman earned a larger compensation than she did. She fought for an increase after season 4 of the series from 150 pounds a week to 450 pounds. We don't know how this played out between her and the show creators, but afterward, Rigg would publicly express her frustrations with the gender pay inequality that existed in the industry and how none of her co-stars was going to stand by her. "I was painted as this mercenary creature by the press when all I wanted was equality," Rigg said. "It's so depressing that we are still talking about the gender pay gap." As things were rocky with the management, Diana and the rest of the cast were not exactly best of friends. According to her, she only considered Patrick McNee and her driver her only friends on the set. So when the opportunity to become a Mrs. Bond showed up, Diana was not going to give it any second thought. In 1969, Rigg was featured as Tracy Bond in the spy film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. According to her, what motivated her to go for the role was that she wanted to promote her fame in the United States. But this was going to come with more. Diana, in an interview, was going to confess how she was generously treated during the movie production. The pay was great, and the show creators were better than what she had to deal with in the Avengers. Diana Riggs' other notable performances include The Assassination Bureau, Julius Caesar, Theater of Blood, In This House of Breed, and The Great Muppet. In 1987, she played the evil queen, Snow White's evil stepmother, in the canon movie Tales adaptation of Snow White. A more recent performance would be in 2013 when she was cast as Lady Olenna Tyrell in the third series of the HBO series Game of Thrones. For her performance, Diana earned an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series. She reprised her role for the 4th, 5th, and 6th seasons of the series. Her character was killed off in the 7th season, and her last performance would receive wide critical acclaim. Rigg's last performance on the screen was in the 2019 psychological horror film Last Night in Soho. The film was in the final stages of production when she died, and it is dedicated to her memory. Rigg started her love story in the industry in the most controversial way, and she was unapologetic about it. In the early 60s, Diana started a forbidden romance with director Philip Seville. Their relationship made headlines for 2 reasons. First, Philip was 8 years her senior, and second, the director was already married to actress and theater director Jane Arden. But the 2 lovebirds just didn't care. They kept it going until after 8 years, then they broke it off. Speaking on the age factor, Diana said that she just didn't care about that. According to her, she was attracted to any man who was intellectually ahead of her. During those 8 years, Philip and Rigg lived under one roof, even though Seville had not officially divorced his wife. Even after Riggs' breakup with Philip, they still maintained a friendship. Her next love adventure was with James Bond co-star George Lazenby. Unfortunately, their romance was never going to go beyond film production. According to George, he had an agreement with the actress. "We were going to have an affair as long as I didn't mess around with other girls," the actor told Entertainment Weekly. "I was screwing around with a girl in the stunt tent and Diana was walking past and I was busted, so the deal was off." On set, Diana was also not impressed with the actor's behavior. She described him as ghastly, and she hated that she had to become his Mrs. Bond. It was even rumored that Diana hated Lazenby so much that she would deliberately eat garlic before filming their romantic scenes. After the film, we doubt that they ever spoke to each other again. Diana's next love interest was Israeli painter Menachem Guffin. They met at a dinner party, and their connection was magical. They spent the next few months in courtship, and in 1973, they tied the knot. On her wedding day, Riggs predicted the end of her marriage. "I have met my match. We fight all the time, but it's a marvelous, marvelous relationship. However, I give the marriage a year," Diana said. True to her prediction, their love affair never made it beyond a year. They separated a year after their wedding, but their divorce would be finalized in 1976. Rigg found comfort once again in the arms of her ex, Philip Seville, who is said to have offered a shoulder to cry on through phone calls. According to him, he had expected the union to end but was genuinely sorry that it happened. Diana's last shot at love was going to leave her broken for life. The actress met theatrical producer Archibald Sterling a few months after her divorce, and they started a steamy romance. Although they finally tied the knot in 1982, they had welcomed their first child, Rachel, 5 years prior in 1977. Determined to make this work because of her child, Diana was going to invest time in growing her home. But Archibald was going to ruin everything after he had an affair with a younger actress, Jolie Richardson. Even after their separation, Diana and Archibald continued to parent their daughter, and she even becomes great friends with Archibald's new wife, Sharon. But the actress secretly planned a cold revenge against her ex-husband. While he was away on a business trip, Diana packed up all of Archie's favorite suits and she donated them to the nearest charity. This was the only way her mind could be put to rest. Rigg might be big on friendship, but she gave up all hope on love after Sterling broke her heart. So she remained single for 30 years after her last marriage. In 2016, speaking on her relationship status, Rigg said, "If you have a good inner life, you don't get lonely. I've got a good imagination, I don't miss romance. I'm so grateful not to have to go there anymore." Perhaps Diana's greatest weakness would be that she just didn't know when to stop. It happened with her simple habits that would later turn into dangerous addictions. And it was also going to play out in her career as well. Retirement was not an option, and she was only going to stop when the industry kicked her out. Directors always felt privileged to have a quality like Diana on their set, but like all other things, Rigg was never going to shine forever. Other nature kept calling, she was going to continue to insist. At age 81, with dying lungs, Diana Rigg was still working multiple contracts. This made things worse with her health, but the actress kept it on until she was in a hospital bed. For a career she originally wanted no part in, Rigg developed such an enviable devotion to her craft, and that promoted her uniqueness. Only if she knew how to stop or even slow down, she might probably still be with us today. Some of her final projects include All Creatures Great and Small, Black Narcissus, and One Night in Soho. When you talk about actresses who stood their ground with the challenges of being in a male-dominated industry in the 70s and 80s, Diana Rigg easily enters that conversation. First, she defied the norms by appearing nude on stage. Then she took on a lead character in the Avengers at a time when women were simple homemakers on the screen. Her character easily became a sensation, and it blazed the trail for many heroines that followed. But for someone who fought so hard for the females, Rigg hated to be interviewed by women as she considered them largely incompetent. "I love women, but I'm aware that we are dangerous and deeply competitive. Although I gave up on being competitive a long time ago. Feminists deny it, but basically it's all about men and sex," she said. At some point, she was even considered anti-feminism, but Rigg never cared enough to succumb. She publicly declared that women who refuted traditional courtesies like a man opening doors for them were stupid. This caused quite a stir in the media space, with a lot of popular magazines accusing the actress of laying into other women. A source quoted by BBC argued that extending simple courtesies to women might indeed be benevolent sexism and potentially harmful. But Rigg wasn't backing down. "I find the whole feminist thing very boring," the actress said in an interview. "They are so much on the defensive that they dare not love a man because they feel assaulted by being dependent." Of course, you would expect the media to fight back, and they did. They waited until the time when they thought the actress was weak, and they struck. Diana's life might be far from all she had wanted it to be, but the actress rejects any idea that suggests that her life has been a disappointment. In the early 2000s, a newspaper described her as being forced into an embittered recluse in France, and Rigg was going to press legal charges against them. A lot of people might debate some of Rigg's ideas about what feminism should be, but I think that something we can all agree on would be her impact on gender equality in the industry. Diana Rigg was introduced to the world with the 1965 British espionage show The Avengers, and in a very little time, Emma Peel became an international sensation. While the cheering happened in front, very few people knew what was going on behind the scenes. The person who was probably the most pissed off when Rigg was celebrated would be actress Elizabeth Shepard. Elizabeth originally won the audition for the role of Emma Peel, but she was dumped after 2 episodes when the show's creators discovered Diana Rigg. Rigg accepted their offer only for her privacy to be constantly invaded by fans, and then she was heavily underpaid. Maybe that is why Avengers never made Diana's list of favorite shows, even though it brought her international success. In an interview, the actress revealed that the best film she's ever been in is the 1973 comedy horror film Theater of Blood. In the British film, Riggs played the daughter of a Shakespearean actor who helped kill her father's critics one after another. Many people doubted her when she said it, but Diana was serious. She had never even seen Game of Thrones, even before she nabbed the role and afterward. So how was she so good at it? Well, Diana claims that she had no idea what she was doing and only did her best to follow the script. Well, on the set, Rigg said that her biggest test was when the show creators required her to memorize a long list of all the things she needed for her marching army. It was difficult, but Diana reported that she did it in one take. While the show's creators gave her trouble, you can trust Rigg to always retaliate. One time, an Emmy Award-winning director who was in charge of an episode asked Diana to do something as simple as opening the door, and her response was one to remember for a very long time. She told him rudely that she would do it her own way, while dismissing him with a thank you and go away. Maybe it was just a bad day, but we all know Diana never lets go of a grudge, so the director probably knew what he did to deserve that. Diana Rigg, in an interview before her death, revealed a dirty addiction that almost killed her during her prime days. As a teenager, Rigg lived a wild and rebellious life. She spent most of her nights in the clubs, and she would come to class the following morning completely hungover. When asked if she had ever done drugs before, Diana confessed to a time in her late 20s when she would try cocaine and amyl nitrate. Fortunately for her, she got out just in time to save her soul, but it was a different story with her smoking habit. According to the actress, she started smoking when she was 18, and she could smoke as much as 20 sticks a day. The actress stopped smoking in 2017 after a dangerous sickness led to heart surgery. Months after the surgery, Diana narrated that her heart stopped ticking during the surgery procedure, and it's a miracle that she made it out alive. But nothing could have prepared her for what was coming. In March 2020, Diana Rigg was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and she was given 6 months to live. According to Rigg's daughter, Rachel, during those 6 months, her mother explored ways to end her life before the estimated time. She would ask Rachel to help her die, and she would make a series of recordings advocating for a change in the law of assisted death. Her soul finally found rest on the 10th of September 2020, and she died peacefully in her daughter's home in London. At the time of her death, Diana Rigg was 82 years old, and she had an estimated net worth of $10 million. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out our other videos of beautiful actresses from the yesteryears on the end screen.